moving to the States, was that difficult for you? How was that transition?
Well, I was recording with George Michael. Sorry, I was recording with George Benson, his album, and I was doing a live gig with George Michael in the Berlin MTV Awards, and I just flew out to New York and stayed at the Paramount Hotel, and I can't remember how long it is before they check you on the passport. I think it's 12 weeks or something. I can't remember. But I was blowing all my earnings as a musician, and I'd made a bit of money, but I was blowing it, staying in this hotel, then going to do classes, then one-on-ones with Sheila. Yeah. Then 3 months, I'd come back to London for 2 weeks, and I'd do it again. I did 2 lots, actually, so 6 months training out there. Then I came back to England. I didn't move to the States. I just lived in that hotel in New York. It was very tough, quite claustrophobic, and the sense memory work that you do with method acting and the areas that you drop into for the work can be quite unsettling, and you know, it's hard work basically. And certainly when you're not experienced and you don't have the techniques to be able to turn it on and turn it off, which is the most important thing, you know, on, off, that's it. When you're learning this thing and you're dropping into an area that's very uncomfortable for some sense memory work with the character, and then you finish the lesson, you're not experienced enough to go, thanks, off. You're in it a bit, and you're recounting some of the stuff. So New York was tough, actually, but I came back to the UK, and then in 1990 I did a couple of small things, and then in 97 I auditioned for this big period drama with the BBC, and a lot of faces went in for the role. It was The History of Tom Jones. The movie was Albert Finney, directed by the late great Tony Richardson, and the BBC were remaking it for television, so it was massive boots to fill. But I was sort of fearless, and I went in, and I think the director, Metin Hussein, he was a great man. He went, there's something about him, I want him for it. And I think the BBC were like, he's not got any experience in there. We've got this guy and this guy. But he went, no, there's something about him.
Damn you for a rascal! Tom Jones, available now on video from ABC shops, ABC centres and video retailers.
And they rolled the dice on with me, and it was amazing. And I mean, I didn't have a clue what I was doing on the show, but I had great help with some of the older British actors. Brian Blessed was a great help to me. These are all great character actors. John Sessions was a great help to me. You know, Kathy Burke, brilliant. They were all very helpful. So I got away with it. And then in those days, you see, television was like a secondary nuance. It was like film was where it was at.
Yep.
And so I just did film after film after film after film, and none of them hit. None of these films hit. But I was learning the trade, but none of these films were successful. And then now, of course, you know, the reverse is true. You want to be part of a great television show because you get to stretch your muscles a bit, and you're doing 7, 8, 9, 10 hours worth of drama, you know. But yeah, that was it. That was the 90s. That was the way it looked in those days. And Tom Jones was a big opening for me, no doubt about it. Then British independent films, I think I did about 12, but none of them hit. And then I did a show called Bodies for the BBC, written by Jed Mercuro, who's a terrific writer, synonymous with Line of Duty, another big show in the UK. And that helped get sort of kudos, I think, if you like, from producers, casting and directors, where they go, yeah, he can do the work, you know, and I'm proud of that show to this day.
Sarah, we spoke about laparoscopy in outpatients. I'm going to make a small incision in the abdomen, take a look inside with a tiny little telescope. All I need is your consent.
I've been doing some research on the internet.
Oh, Jesus.
I'd like to ask again about the risks.
Laparoscopy isn't a high-risk operation. Of course, no medical procedure is without its dangers. Thousands of people have operations in the NHS every day. Only a small number of them have any problems. That's the most important thing to remember.
You're patronising me.
Of course I am. I'm a doctor.
Well, you talk about your fearlessness, like going in like 18, 19 years old. We had Gilles Marini on last week, and he talked about that too, the fearlessness of just like, hey, I'm going to go meet myself. I moved here, you know, on myself. You go and you're just like, I'm going to do whatever it takes and go forward. It doesn't always work out, but if you continue to go, like things will happen. You know, keep moving the ball down the field, it will happen, you know. And
Yeah, and I think on that note, I think that playing live, as in it's a young musician in front of whether it's 500 people or 150,000 people, it's like you're fearless, man. You just like now, like in the last 10 years when I've done big gigs, I've got a bit nervous. In fact, I did one 2006. Never happened to me before, but it was such a massive pressurized gig. I completely folded. I forgot everything and just stopped playing. It was a live broadcast. The only time ever in my life. But
really,
when you're young and fearless, man, you just like, let's go. What's next?
What's next? Yeah, and then there's a lot to that. I always talk about, because I was an actor as well, stepping on the stage. Like the hardest thing to do sometimes in a live performance is just to step on the stage. And obviously you've done it several times, but doing that is it's sort of amazing, And you talk about 96, 97. One of my favorite pilots, and you didn't mention it, is Hotel Babylon. Like,
oh yeah,
I thought it was a brilliant show. Like today, like it could transform like to now. I loved Hotel Babylon. How did that come about after all those things? How'd that work out for you?
That was after. So Bodies 2003 did well. Got BAFTA nominated, did all that kind of business, and then I did a thing with Benedict Cumberbatch and Robert Carlyle called The Last Enemy, which was excellent to do. And then Gareth Neame, who at that point had this small company called Carnival Pictures, Carnival Television. He was a commissioner at the BBC, and he commissioned me on 2 or 3 jobs, including Bodies.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, should we have a meeting in the office? I said, yeah. He said, listen, I've got this idea for this show set in a hotel. Very much like there was a Jimmy Carn show set in Vegas. What was it called, where it followed the people around?
It was Las Vegas. I think it was Las Vegas.
Oh, it was called Vegas. Okay.
Yeah.
He said it's like that, but it's got quite a lot of depth to it. So I said, "As it?" He says, "Yeah." He said, "Do you fancy doing it?" And I says, "Yeah, let's go, man. Let's go." Yeah. And we did. We ended up doing 3 years on it, and it got like 9 million viewers. It got a 37% audience share. It was a massive show.
Like a little racy, a little just kind of edgy. It was really
good.
It was.
You know what? I refer to that show as classy bubblegum. It was a souffle, man, but it was a well-made souffle.
Yeah.
And I used to say, I said to Gareth after the first season, I went, brother, this isn't really what we spoke about. There's not that much depth to it, And he was like, yeah, but it's doing well. It's a hit show. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Anyway, he then obviously went on to sell some of Carnival, and then he's produced and created with his team all of the Downton Abbey stuff, So he knows his. And I worked for him again years later on a show called Jamestown, which was brilliant. Yeah. He's a clever man. But yeah, that show did well in the UK. There was no doubt about it. And it was, I did, I think, 2.5 seasons on it, which was great fun.
Yeah. So how did you get to Los Angeles? Tell me, obviously you had a good career, was coming by. So how did you make it? Obviously we lived here, 15, 20 years? How's it?
23 years. Yeah. How did that happen? Well, I got the film with Mariah in like 2001, I think, or I can't remember, 2001. And I got offered a British film, and I got offered that job with MC at Fox, and I thought, nah, the British film's not great, and I'll do this at Fox. And obviously, it was a disaster. She was great. She was delightful to work with, and we got on really well, actually. But the film that I knocked back made about $190 million at the box office. I couldn't believe it. That's just the luck, man. But that took me stateside, and then before that movie came out, I was doing the rounds in Los Angeles. Fox casting, Donna Isaacson, Julie Hutchinson, all of them. Denise Charmaine, all of them, and getting very, very close on some of these big jobs. Like there was one with a terrific British director, and I met Richard Gere one day, and that's one of those moments where you're just getting a bit panicky, going, I've got to rely on the work, but someone like Richard Gere walks in, and he's FFS, he's got a beautiful vibe about him, and you start forgetting. In those days,
Yeah.
you can be quite impressed and bowled over, and then forget about the core of the work and the truth of the work. Now I'd be, it's lovely to see how you're doing. Let's go to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With whoever it is. But in those days, I was sort of impressed. I was impressed, and then became quite nervous.
Mhm.
But
It's part of the process, though. I think that's part of the process, though.
Life, isn't it? It's growing up.
Yeah.
And Josh, I think it's also knowing it's just a job, man. It's just a job. You can idolize people, and that's nice and respectful. But when you're on the green and you're doing the work, let's go. It's just a job. Nobody's.
I'll tell you this though. When I was an actor, I did it for 10 years. I never got that. I was always impressed. I was always insecure, and I didn't have enough grounding to be like, okay, all right, yeah, it's just a job. Couldn't get that. I couldn't figure that out. I think maybe just after we're having this conversation, you having that background of going on stage and performing, that says something. A lot of people come out to Los Angeles and California and they want to be an actor. They want to do or a performer. They don't know what that is. These days, like you mentioned, it's now YouTube, it's Instagram, it's all these things. But back when we were younger, it was go audition, get the show, get in front of the people, and go do the work. It's totally different. So there's a lot of intimidation factor. I think if you don't know how to handle it, and obviously you did when you were younger, it probably did you very well.
Well, I think unfortunately the art form is getting lost. People like the idea of being an actor, but if you do put them, they just get eaten alive. If you put them with 4 or 5 seasoned actors on the floor on a job, you're going to get demolished. And there has to be something where you have a. It's all just a game, man. It's not really. People don't get moves on the board because of their skill set with acting. He's mates with that producer, or they went to school together, or they did. I've seen it, man, hundreds of times, and you go, well, what's the point? And unfortunately, the point is when you do hit in the casino, boom, you're rocking, and that's what keeps pulling you back. Going in, if you work on a project where you go, this is great, and that scene was just that actor's serious and what great writing, and I love the director, then you come away from it with a great feeling of that you've committed yourself to something and you've given it your best shot. I love it. I love the art form. I love the preparation. I love, where's he from? What's he look like? What is it, a real guy? Is it not? And dude, I love it all, man. And I'm still in love with the art form of it, and so yeah. Anyway, back to your question. So America, bits and pieces, and then I was out here for about a year. Then that film opened. It didn't do well at all, and then that door started closing in the States for me, and so I went back to the UK, and then that's when I did the Bodies, the medical drama, which really helped me immensely. So I was very grateful for that.